Hi, it's Hazel and welcome to my channel, Hazel and Aka Design. This is going to be another video under hashtag use it, don't store it. If you saw the first one I did, you'll know that the whole premise behind the idea is using the items that we are acquiring through thrifting and then wondering, okay, now what? Where am I going to find a spot for this? How am I going to organize it? Do I need more storage solutions? Do I need, all those questions and all that additional work that is part of this process, and frankly burns up, I think, a lot of time and creative energy. So in this one, this is really simple. Not so long ago, I thrifted just a little bag with silk ribbon in it, these started pieces, as well as a few little, what are these things called? Bobbins, I guess. These are not the greatest colors. There's just a little bit of gray there, more green, and white. So for my purposes, I'm not going to be using these. I'm using these started pieces. And then there was this, I don't know what this is really, some kind of little glittery cord. Anyway, what I decided is I also, in the storing capacity, have this that I thrifted at some other time and place. Company is DCWV, and it says color and create projects. So basically 65 sheets, 6 by 8 inches, printed cardstock. So they're like coloring pages, except that they're on cardstock. So I thought, okay, these can obviously be used as signature pages, and that's great. But why not try to combine the silk ribbon and some of these geometric, well, not necessarily geometric only, but some of these really graphic designs, and try to do some silk ribbon embroidery instead of on fabric, excuse me, do it on paper. So I picked out some sheets. I don't know why. I probably didn't have this in mind when I picked these. They're sort of postcard size, I guess. So for the time being, well, this one I must have cut in half. Anyway, for the time being, let's just ignore these, and I'll show you what my first attempt was. So I took, there's a lot of green here. So I took green silk ribbon and thought, okay, why don't I do like petals? What is the name of that stitch? Is it daisy? I don't know, maybe daisy stitch. And I pre-poked some holes with the point of my needle. But if you're familiar with this stitch, you know that there is a kind of an origin point that you keep coming back to and back to and back to. And you can see from over here, maybe I should use something to point with, how close these ends of the petals actually are. So it doesn't take much imagination and or real life experience to know that pretty soon this is going to tear through. So I stopped what I was doing and cut the thing, this piece, oh, these are more cards that I pulled out. Cut this piece in half and thought, let me try again. So what I did this time was I basically covered the back with masking tape. Now, of course, I initially started just taping where I thought I was going to be working. And what I did was all of these French knots. I think this is the first one I did. Excuse me. And I used 3 wraps. Now that became rather big. Became rather a big hole too. This time I did not poke the holes first. I just used my relatively blunt needle because, of course, if you use a sharper needle, the chances of putting the needle through the ribbon at just the most inopportune time is likely to happen. So I did French knots. I'm not going to do this one here because it's so close to the edge of the paper. I left a couple here that I could demo if people aren't familiar with French knots. And then I did the daisy stitch here. Now you'll notice that I only did 4 out of 8 petals, and that was deliberate so that I don't have, even with masking tape, I don't want this to tear through and then my work is for naught. And then I thought, okay, maybe this wasn't the greatest piece to start with, but what should I do next? And again, I wanted to limit myself to these pieces. I do have many more of these bobbin type things in a variety of colors, but I thought, okay, why start that when I've got this? So now this pink is a little nicer, brighter, nicer, but it's also wider. So I didn't really want to alter the width, so I'm going with the pale pink. So again, looking at this design, thinking I want to keep this as basic as possible, as doable as possible, because it's not as easy as doing this on fabric. So then I thought, well, there is this design here, almost like a tulip shape, that I'm just basically covering with 3 straight stitches. So I'll just show you that. So to minimize the amount of ribbon that I'm wasting, I basically, that's probably going to, yeah, if I go through there, it'll come apart. So I'm going to go now to this point. And again, it's just a matter of sort of lining up this bottom finger as a guide and this top fingernail as a way to sort of feel where that needle is likely to emerge. And again, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect because nothing much in this world is perfect. Going back through that same hole, and you can see how that does sort of put pressure on the paper and on that particular hole. So again, I'm going to go to the top here. Oh, missed that by a long shot, sorry. That's because you guys are watching. Basically, as I said, I'm just doing 3 straight stitches. That's not the best one I've ever done, but again, you know, it's like most of the things that we do in this world. It's the overall impression that we're trying to create here. So then I will venture over to this one. Now you can see, I'll show you, this is getting pretty lumpy at the back. Now this silk ribbon is in itself is thin, but by the time you've tied a few knots and gone underneath and whatever, it does start to make some bulk there. So of course, this is not something that I would try to, back and whatever. This is something that will clearly have to be nailed. Oh my goodness. I didn't bring my hammer and nails. This is something that will have to be glued down to the paper. Now I did I guess this was intended because half the sheet is printed and half is plain. It was probably intended to be scored and folded on that line and, you know, just become a card. Now this bit here, this is a perforation. You know, that's what's holding it in the book. So now I could, I suppose, okay, maybe. I guess I won't rule that out. If when I'm done, I feel that I can fold this over. Oh, I see my tape extended past the fold. That's not good. I'd have to rip that back a bit. Anyway, if it's not too bumpy, then maybe it is worthwhile to close it up and treat it just as a little, you know, card or something that could be put in a pocket. Now, of course, if you don't have silk ribbon, I'm sure you have embroidery floss, because goodness knows that's in every thrift store. I'll do this last one here, and then we'll kind of have an overview of what this looks like. Now, I suppose I could further decorate this, maybe with some, just some coloring, like fill in some of the areas, maybe just with black, you know, black pen. I mean, you know, microliner or something like that, or black felt, so it's get a little better coverage a little faster. And, you know, just to give it a little more punch, because again, these are fairly pastel colors. Anyway, I plunged right into this video without any sort of preamble or welcome, so let me now, now that I've remembered my manners, let me just say welcome to the video, welcome to the channel. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you very much. If you're lost in the woods, you took the wrong turn and you found me by accident, well, hey, happy accident. I hope that you're finding that there's something to keep returning for. Either some, you know, different takes on old ideas, or maybe some new ideas, or weird sense of humor, whatever. So that is what it looks like for now. Let me just, what can I use? I don't really have. I'm just going to peel this back a bit so I can maybe figure out where the score line should be. There is no score line, of course. But maybe I can just fold this and see how lumpy it'll be. I guess the other option here, it would be hard to make this, even with glue, it would be hard. Like I can feel the lumps under there. It would be hard to keep this closed, so maybe the solution would be to, you know, tack it down with glue and then sew around the edges. Just removing some of this extra tape here. After I realized I was working all over the card, I figured, oh, I might as well cover the whole surface with tape and not fool around like I was doing. This is very close to the fold. So I hope that you are finding time to craft. Goodness knows, I'd bet my bottom dollar that you have a lot of supplies and probably just as many ideas. So now it's just a matter of doing it. And I hope that that's one of the things you get by tuning into this channel. You know, sort of the permission, the incentive, the encouragement to get out there and do. I like being a voyeur as much as the next girl, but eventually, you know, a person just needs to start doing some of their own to get the real benefit of this. Yeah, you can see that I cannot really totally crease this because of bumps, but it gives a better idea of how it could look as a finished product. Or, as I said before, it could just be was it? No, it was green I was going to show you. Oh, did I have a threaded piece? I mean, a knotted piece of green? Apparently not. I have a knotted yellow, though. Really easy to thread the needle. So again, you know, I think it would be really not very advisable to do this on anything that is thinner than cardstock, because I think it'll just, you know, tear through. I can't believe all the years that I've been alive, and all the years, and not that I know I did a fair bit of stitching in my day, I never knew how to make that knot. I think it's called a quilter's knot. So, boy, I learned that from watching Rachel and Sarah. Oh, okay, I was going to go here. So, with the French knots, I, of course, chose... You know what? Maybe I should poke a little hole. It'll save some effort. Okay, so you come up from the bottom, pull your thing all the way through. Then take your needle and wrap, in this case it's ribbon, wrap ribbon or embroidery floss around your needle. Now, again, I said that what seems to be, so I've got that there. I'm trying to keep a little tension on it so it doesn't get too sloppy looking. And then you pull it through, and of course it sort of makes a knot, and there's a little bit of bulk there, so you've got that raised effect. Now, this is so close to the edge, I'm going to have to trim that or tape it down or something so it doesn't show past the edge. Anyway, how many wraps you put around your needle is going to be determined by, well, how big a knot you want, how many strands, say, of embroidery floss you're using. If you were using it full strength, which is 6 threads, you would use fewer wraps than if you were doing 2 or 3 threads. So again, I've come up through the bottom. Geez, I'm not going to need to, let me do that right now. Now, I suppose I could, no, I wouldn't have wasted my time using washi tape. Number 1, because it doesn't hold as well. And number 2, because it hardly sticks. Did I just say that and count as 2 different ideas? Number 1, because it would be a waste of a decorative product. And number 2, it doesn't stick worth a darn unless you glue it, and who needs that extra step? Okay, so I've come up through the bottom. I've got my needle. I've got this bit sticking out. I'm wrapping it around twice, and I'm trying to get as close, stay as close to my paper, or if it was fabric, to my fabric as possible, so that it doesn't get sort of out of hand. And like I said, I'm not going to do that one, so I'm done with this pale green. So I'm just going to run my needle under that piece of ribbon. You know, it's just another way to sort of secure it. Oh, I thought I had looped this through here. Whoops, don't do that. Huh. That was a lovely demonstration, which showed you nothing. And I did it again. Okay, obviously at some point, my tail is too long here. It's part of the problem. Let's get this thing out of the way. As you're getting, you know, run it under there, loop it around, and tie a knot. Okay, so I could, I suppose, maybe let's do another yellow petal or two. I don't want to do, like, again, those are really close. These are really close to the edge here. So if I did this one and this one, I'd probably be safe. Maybe this one and this one. I guess that would be nice. Let me just quickly do that. Now, because I already have a knot in this, I can cut this knot off. Okay, let me get this on here and I'll show you the knot, the quilter's knot that I'm gushing on about. Geez, this is my second video of the day. Waiting for the oats to be ready so that we could combine that. And I'm hoarse. Like, what the heck? Remember when I said it's really easy to thread this? I don't really want to lick it because, you know, you guys are watching. Oh, for heaven's sakes. Okay, so that awesome knot. You've got your thing threaded. You lay your needle parallel to the other end, to the opposite end, the end you want to knot. Wrap. Now I did 3 wraps there because I want. Okay, so I did 3 wraps and now I'm pulling all this through with this thumb, these 2 fingers sort of applying a bit of pressure there so that that knot is fairly close to the end. Now I'll cut this little frayed edge off. Sorry. So it makes a nice compact knot. Now I'm hoping, you know, that might not even be big enough. Normally you want the smallest knot that's going to do the trick. In this case, because it's a fairly thick needle and it's an unforgiving surface like paper, that knot may not be big enough. So let's do it again. So again, needle parallel to the fiber, do 3 again. That is there, ready to slide down the length of the fiber. No. Oh, I shouldn't tighten it that much. Anyway, let's make a hole and see what happens. See if it holds it. And if not, then I can. So I'm going, oh, well, I'll make this hole here just so I have a place to aim. So I'm coming up from the bottom. Let's see if that knot is, or one of those knots is big enough. Okay, that's not bad. I'm not going to cut that till I know that it holds. So then with this daisy stitch, I sure hope that's the right name, I'm putting I sort of have my thumb holding that piece of ribbon off to the side. I'm putting my needle in from the top now into the same hole. And you see I'm bending the paper because that's the only way I kind of can get up there. Again, because it's not as flexible as fabric is. So that thread is still off to the left. I'm pulling, 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 pulling. And now I've got this. So now I'm going to take the tip of my needle and put it down through that hole so that it's sort of an anchoring stitch. So I said that I'm going to skip one, so now I'm going to go over here. Let me do that same thing. Let me make a hole. Maybe I'll cheat a little and go a little further away from the edge. I think I'm really playing with fire a bit here. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if, again, thread off or ribbon off to the left. And I guess that's because I'm right-handed. Oh, see that tore right there. Damn it. Playing with fire. Don't have my tape. I don't have my masking tape all the way to the edge. So let's see if I can. I'm just going to do that like a little patch. Not going to worry about trimming that right now. I'm going to pull that out. Okay, let's try this again. So ribbon off to the left-hand side. Needle going in through that same hole, which has now been repaired. Oh, well, tore again. Or let go because there's so very little holding it there. But let's not give up yet. Pulling it through. And anchoring it at the top by going back down through that same hole. That hole got kind of sloppy too. I can push that down a bit. Now, if this ends up being glued closed, that will help that. If it doesn't end up being closed, but it ends up being glued down to a page or whatever, then it will have a chance to be saved. I think what I'll do in the meantime, though, just to avoid, you know, things catching on it, is I'll trim my little patch a bit. It doesn't need to be that big. And maybe I'll trim, I'll leave that sticking out, but maybe I'll just put this down over it as well. So it's essentially doubled that up. Okay, how are we doing for time? Let's just have a gander here. 29 minutes. Okay, I'll do 2 more petals and we'll call it quits. That's a fair ways to run the ribbon, but that's fine. I'm not going to you know, knot it and rethread and start all over again. I'll you know, weave it under some of these other pieces. Okay, so let's think this through. If I do that one, then I need to do that one. I do have tape right to the edge. So, okay, let's make this hole. And let's make this hole. And we should be good. Okay, so you don't, as a rule, when you're stitching, you don't want a whole bunch of long things. Number one, it's a waste of supplies, but it's also, you know, if this were a functional piece of, you know, if this was a tablecloth or something, you wouldn't want things that could catch on something else. Oh, I could have gone underneath there, but we know that this is going to be secured by gluing. It's kind of getting a bit dark here. Let me just turn on this light. Hopefully that helps a bit. Okay, same hole. Come on, you can do it. Ugh. What went wrong here? And down through that hole. Now, obviously, it helped that this was taped. I made a little pilot hole, so that helps as well. Plus, having, you know, have it go wrong once, you try to be a little more delicate, perhaps, the next time around. Okay, thread off to the, or ribbon off to the left. Same hole. Whoops, I almost punctured the, and I did that before you guys were, before the camera was turned on. And even with a blunt needle, you can have it go where you don't, whoa, where you don't want it to. So, you know, kind of try to stay relatively aware of what is going on. And again, this, all this does is distribute a little more of the color through more of this card. Okay, I'm going to knot this. Oh, what happened here? Yeah, I must have gone, I thought something felt different. Now, I'm not going to take this all apart, but I will probably end up having to maybe tape that down or something so that it, mind you, maybe it's too short to really, again, I'm just going to go under this. It's too short to, so I went under there. I'm going under a second time, and then I'm going to loop through here so that it ties a knot. Maybe I should catch that loop there and it'll suck it in a bit. And then it won't accidentally show out the side. Okay. So I think that there are some possibilities for this. Again, this is essentially the first attempt. I think I would be a bit more selective, picking, you know, what sort of design to use in the future. You know, like if a person picked this butterfly one. Why is that scored there, I wonder? Anyway, you know, it could do a satin stitch, which is essentially just, you know, back and forth to fill a space. So straight, 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 or the long way, however you choose to. Or maybe a person would just use maybe, you know, even like this metallic cord to do the, is that called the thorax? To do the body of the butterfly. That could be cute. And then maybe augment it with some colored, you know, felt pens or whatever, or gel pens or whatever a person has at their disposal. Yikes, I can't pick this up. Okay, so that is that. This is a use it, don't store it project. And like I said, I have these couple of pieces of this cord or thread or whatever it is. Doesn't seem to be unraveling, touch wood. So I might choose to add some of that to it just for the heck of it. Or then again, I might not. I will probably add a bit more yellow after the video. But you know, this is, I think with these little safeguards, picking the right paper, reinforcing the back with masking tape, maybe doing pilot holes with your needle. I think it gives an interesting effect, and it's another sort of handmade component that a person can bring to their project. Now, of course, how much you choose to, how much of your time and energy you spend choosing to stitch will depend on how much you love stitching, and you know, essentially that's probably the real determining thing there. So anyway, I will carry on so that I have something to photograph for Instagram. Thank you for joining me. If you haven't already done so, I'd appreciate you subscribing. There will be a 500 plus giveaway coming up after harvest. And of course, as one of my subbies so graciously pointed out, next is 1,000. So it's a moving target. And anyway, we're going to keep plugging away at this. So again, thank you for joining me. I appreciate your comments, your thumbs up, your suggestions, your questions, your humor, and yeah, just knowing that you're there makes so much difference, guys. You truly don't understand that maybe unless you have your own channel. Anyway, thanks, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.